The colony's final message, Croton, remains the most baffling clue to their gruesome fate in American history. In the verdant landscape of 16th-century America, a tantalizing tale of human endeavor and abandonment unfolded. It was an era when European exploration was gaining momentum, driven by the insatiable quest for wealth, knowledge, and empire building. The New World, as it came to be known, beckoned with promises of untold riches and boundless opportunities. In 1584, Sir Walter Raleigh, a celebrated English explorer and courtier, laid eyes on the eastern seaboard of North America. He had heard tales of the continent's vast resources and envisioned an English foothold in what would become a lucrative territory. Raleigh's endeavors in the New World were not without controversy. However, his sponsor, Queen Elizabeth I, had expressed reservations about Raleigh's endeavors, viewing them with suspicion due to his tumultuous past with the crown. Undeterred by these reservations, Raleigh secured a charter for an English colony on Roanoke Island, nestled within the outer banks of present-day North Carolina. This strategic location offered access to trade routes and served as a vital hub for navigating the treacherous waters of the Atlantic. It was here that the ill-fated Roanoke colony would soon take root. Raleigh entrusted John White, a skilled artist, cartographer, and member of the English Council, with overseeing the establishment of this new settlement. White, an Anglo-Irishman, had previously ventured into North America with Raleigh on his 1584 expedition. Upon arriving in England in 1587 to secure further funding for the colony, White was met with a most unwelcome surprise. Queen Elizabeth I had passed away, and his son, also named John White, had been executed by order of his stepfather, Sir Francis Drake. Despite this personal tragedy, White persevered in his duty to Raleigh. He convinced him to send an additional supply of colonists, food, and provisions to the struggling Roanoke colony in 1587. This shipment was intended to bolster the colony's dwindling resources and ensure its survival. However, fate had other plans. As the months passed, John White found himself once again caught up in Raleigh's endeavors, this time as a prisoner of war in Spain. His pleas for ransom remained unheeded until 1590, when he finally secured his release after 8 long years of confinement. The English economy was booming during this period, and Raleigh had secured significant backing from the financial houses to refinance the colony. Upon his return to Roanoke Island, White found a scene that chilled him to the bone. The colony's structures were gone. There were no signs of struggle or attack, and most disturbingly, not a single soul remained. The disappearance of the colonists left behind only one enigmatic message, Croton, scrawled on a wooden post in an attempt to convey that they had migrated inland for safety. This cryptic clue has become a defining aspect of the enduring mystery surrounding Roanoke, leaving us with far more questions than answers. As White struggled to make sense of this inexplicable tragedy, he realized that many of his hopes and dreams had been shattered into fragments. The once promising colony was now not but an eerie reminder of human fragility in the face of the unforgiving wilderness. The lost colony of Roanoke was never meant to be a footnote in history. It was a grand experiment, a testament to the ambitions of English settlers and their dreams of establishing a foothold on the New World. But like so many before it, the colony's fate would become a mystery that would haunt historians for centuries. As the summer of 1587 wore on, tensions began to rise among the colonists. The small band of settlers had grown increasingly reliant on the support of their English sponsors, and with each passing month, the distance between Roanoke and England seemed to stretch further and further apart. The once enthusiastic settlers were now struggling to make ends meet, their crops failing and their supplies dwindling. In the midst of this turmoil, a new leader emerged, John White, an artist, cartographer, and seasoned diplomat who had traveled to Roanoke in 1585 with the original group. White had spent years building relationships with the local Algonquian tribes, but his efforts were met with growing suspicion and hostility. The colonists, for their part, seemed increasingly isolated and disconnected from the wider world. As winter set in, White knew he had to return to England to secure more supplies and to persuade more settlers to join the colony. But just as he was preparing to depart, disaster struck. His daughter, Eleanor Dare, gave birth to a son, the first English child born in Roanoke. The arrival of this newborn brought a measure of hope to the struggling colony, but also raised questions about the colonists' status as settlers and their place within the larger English empire. White's departure for England was delayed by the English naval war against Spain, which had broken out while he was still in Roanoke. It would be months before he could return, leaving the colony at a critical juncture. As White sailed back to Roanoke, he found that his absence had taken its toll on the colonists. They were dwindling in number, and their stores were running perilously low. The winter of 1587 was harsh, with fierce storms battering the coast of North Carolina. It's possible that the harsh conditions drove some of the settlers to seek shelter elsewhere, but whatever happened next, it would change everything, and what we found will shock you. In the spring of 1588, White finally arrived back in Roanoke, only to find an eerie silence where his colony once thrived. The fort was abandoned, the houses were vacant, and there were no signs of struggle or violence, just a sense that something had been deliberately erased from history. As White walked through the deserted streets, he noticed strange symbols etched into the trees and on the walls of the buildings. These mysterious markings seemed to hold secrets of their own, but they would remain a mystery for centuries to come. White searched the fort frantically for any sign of his fellow settlers, but there was nothing. No bodies, no graves, just an eerie silence that seemed to swallow everything in its path. And then, as he reached the top of the fort's wall, he saw it. A word carved into the wood, Croton. What did it mean? Was this a message from the colonists themselves, or was it something more sinister? The fate of Roanoke remained a mystery, but White knew that his discovery would raise more questions than answers. In the summer of 1590, the fate of the lost colony of Roanoke had been hanging in the balance for months. The settlers, led by John White, the colony's governor, had been struggling to survive on the isolated coast of present-day North Carolina. Their crops were failing, their food supplies were dwindling, and tensions among the group were running high. As we explore the tumultuous world of Roanoke, it's essential to recall that this was not a story of good people gone bad, but rather one of desperate individuals trying to hold on to hope in the face of unrelenting hardship. The colony had been established just 2 years prior, and White's return from England with supplies was intended to be the turning point in their struggle. However, fate had other plans. One of the most pivotal moments in the Roanoke saga occurred in July 1590, when a supply ship carrying food, tools, and clothing failed to arrive as scheduled. This omission would have significant consequences, not just for the colony's survival, but also for its very existence. White, who was hundreds of miles away in England, had been separated from his family and was now facing an uncertain return. The weight of responsibility for the colony's fate rested squarely on his shoulders. The arrival of Sir Richard Grenville, a seasoned English naval officer, would prove to be a turning point in the Roanoke story. In June 1590, just months after the failed supply ship, Grenville arrived off the coast of Roanoke with a fleet of ships. His mission was to explore the New World and claim new territory for England, but he soon found himself drawn into the complexities of the lost colony's plight. Grenville's presence brought both relief and further despair to the beleaguered settlers. On the one hand, they welcomed his military might as a deterrent against hostile Native American tribes. On the other hand, they watched in horror as Grenville began to dismantle their fragile society, disbanding the council that had been White's main source of support. In a shocking twist, it was Grenville who revealed that he had made contact with the colony's leader, John White's daughter, Eleanor Dare, and her husband, Ananias. This was not just an innocent meeting. Rather, it was a dramatic confrontation that would shake the foundations of the entire settlement. It turned out that the once resilient Dare family had actually vanished into thin air. The very fabric of Roanoke seemed to unravel before our eyes as Grenville's words dripped with a mixture of curiosity and disdain. If I could have found out who these people were, what they did, or their intentions, he wrote in his own journal, I should have been much more inclined to have stayed there. These ominous statements would become the stuff of legend. In the aftermath of this confrontation, Grenville's actions would seal Roanoke's fate forever. The colony was now nothing but a mere specter, a ghostly presence haunting the shores of North Carolina. As White returned from England, he found that his beloved family and community had vanished into thin air. A cryptic message, etched into a tree, stood as the only testament to their existence: Croton. The question that still haunts historians today is what became of the lost colony of Roanoke. Did they succumb to disease, starvation, or were they absorbed into the Native American tribes they had encountered? The mystery remains unsolved, and it's this enigma that continues to captivate us all these centuries later. As we stand at the threshold of a new era in the annals of American history, the fate of Roanoke remains an enigma, shrouded in mystery and forever etched in the fabric of our collective imagination. The once thriving settlement, abandoned without warning, left behind only the haunting specter of Croton carved into a tree, beckoning the brave souls who dared to follow its call. In the end, it was not the harsh environment or the relentless forces of nature that proved too great for this fledgling colony. Rather, it was the unyielding hand of time itself, whispering secrets in the wind, as if to say, "You were never here." The final entry in the journal of John White, the ill-fated governor of Roanoke, stands as a poignant testament to the crushing power of fate. We have had but one misfortune only, which was an arrow wound to one of our boys, and we are now so far from the place that it is not easy for us to know what course to take. The melancholy note on which this chapter ends, like a final requiem, serves as a poignant reminder that sometimes, even in the face of hope and determination, the universe can be cruel. The impact of Roanoke's disappearance reverberated throughout the ages, casting a long shadow across the annals of American history. The eerie silence that followed their departure left an indelible mark on the collective psyche of a nation still grappling with its own identity. As our young nation grew and matured, the legend of Roanoke became inextricably linked to the very notion of America itself, a land born from promise, forged by sacrifice and tested by time. Fast-forwarding to this day, we see that the echoes of Roanoke continue to resonate through the corridors of power. The questions that plagued our ancestors remain hauntingly relevant. What secrets lie hidden in the forgotten recesses of our collective past? How do we reconcile the promise of a new beginning with the harsh realities of human fallibility? As we navigate the uncharted waters of our modern era, perhaps it is time to re-examine the enduring legacy of Roanoke and confront the fundamental questions that this haunting tale poses. And so, as we bid farewell to this chapter in the chronicle of American history, let us take a moment to pause on the cusp of a new dawn. As we reflect on the enigmatic remains of Roanoke, can we truly say that we have learned from our collective past? Or are we forever bound by the same cycles of hope and despair that haunted the brave souls who dared to stake their claim in this unforgiving land? As you consider these haunting questions, I leave you with a final thought. The true story of Roanoke is not just about a lost colony. It is about us, our capacity for resilience, our propensity for courage, and our unyielding quest to uncover the truth that lies hidden in the shadows.